We're here with 2022 four-star linebacker Jalon Walker out of Salisbury High School here in North Carolina. Jalon, before we get into really any of the recruitment stuff, I want to ask you about first your junior season here. I stumbled upon it a few times now. I've said your senior season because it's happening in the spring. How happy were you to just find out that you actually are going to get a season and get a chance to play as a junior and then get another time in the fall?
Yeah, I'm really happy. North Carolina, Virginia, and some more states are only states that play in the spring. Finally getting a chance to hit back on the grass. Great opportunity to showcase what I've been working on the whole offseason.
Another thing is, I think that's probably been sitting in there. The last time you played football in a game was the state title game outside the first two games you have under your belt, and that did not end the way that you guys wanted it to. So how big of a goal was it to just get back out there and sort of get that sour taste out of your mouth and get moving on to the next thing?
Right. First game of the year was, big rivalry game we had, and we went out and won and did what we were supposed to do and win. And, us going back out from the state championship, getting that bad taste from out of our mouths, really helped a lot. I'm looking for another year going back to the state championship.
And we won't have to show, we don't have to talk about it, but you are sort of dealing with an injury after last week, and it's just something you're gonna have to work through.
Right.
How do you sort of handle that, but also know you're gonna have to be a leader and be one of the vocal guys while going through all that on your own?
Right, me going throughout my injury, it's a little minor setback, but I have a wide playing skills, and using all my other skills to the best of my ability to get over of having this injury. Me going back out on tomorrow, ready to play, will bring the most energy out that I have from the last game. So.
Before we hopped on the interview, you and I were talking off camera. We talked about the different divisions and levels of high school football here in North Carolina. You guys are the second lowest level, so it's not like you guys have the biggest school or like the biggest program or anything. So you have to go both ways, but you're, like I said, you're a vocal leader, you're an on-field leader for this team. How valuable is it to you to think to go both ways and just help your team win as much as you can?
Right, I believe you put all the horses on the field to win. So our coach, our head coach, Coach Henson, and our offensive coordinator, Coach Walker, does a great job of putting all the people that have talent to go play both sides and prepare us to play both sides by getting us in shape and getting us what we need to know with plays.
You mentioned Coach Henson right there and your other coaches here at Salisbury, but another coach that has an impact in your life is your father, who's a Division II coach down here in North Carolina. We talked about it, but how long have you just been around the game of football, and how do you think that's made you into where you are today and put you in this position?
Right, I've been around football ever since I was born. My dad was coaching at Coastal Carolina when I was born. He was a DC there, so I believe defense runs in my blood. Ever since I've been around football and defense, I know more than I should at this age.
One thing that I imagine it goes, how often does your dad sort of talk to you, and do you guys sort of sit down and watch film? What's the process like having a dad that is a head coach at a Division II college and that just coaches in college football in general?
Right, on Fridays, he explains to me that he's a father on Fridays, supports me as best he can, tries to stay out the way of other coaches that's on the sideline and that are coaching me, but he does a great job of giving me tips and motivation on those next days and us watching film to things I need to work on and sharpen my skills.
It's been anything less than an ideal world recently with 2020 and everything, but in an ideal world, you would have had your junior season over with. You would have been on taking visits and everything. How have you sort of handled everything without being able to take visits and just going through this process while on quarantine and COVID?
Right, I've been talking to coaches, throughout the weeks of getting the best information I need to get to make the best decision for me. I've been on many Zoom calls throughout the weeks of getting the best information, and they sending me information about who's in the room, about the program, about the campus, and what I want to major in when I get there.
You've cut down your list to a handful of schools. What's the number again that you're down to?
6. You're
down to 6. You have a commitment date set. Why was it those 6, and just what's your thought process going into your commitment now?
Right. That whole week I play on Friday. My dad plays on Saturday, and why not end the week with a happily ever after with me committing on Sunday?
One thing that I think is interesting, I want you to explain to people, is that you said you have their final 6, and you and your parents each night you have a cup. You said, and that you pull each college out of a cup and discuss a new one each and every night as you lead up to the decision. Where did the idea come from? How much do you think it just helps you as you near your decision date?
Right, it helps a lot. We talk about the pros and cons about the school. Me and my family sit down to think about why this school or why not this school. That really helps a lot in my recruitment process.
We're going to talk about, I'll point out 2 schools right now because there's 6, but there's 2 that I primarily want to talk about, and that's Ohio State and Clemson. two schools that are not in-state schools, but they're not too far away, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. When you get to see two programs like that you're heavily considering, that are two top programs, go at it in a setting like a college football playoff, how do you evaluate that, just projecting on your future and what you want to do at the next level?
Right, yeah. Both programs are really great, led by Coach Sweeney and Coach Day. Those programs have increased over the years by going to the college football playoffs. That shows of the amount of talent they have and the amount of talent they bring in to have a successful season.
This is not really that big of a question, but as a recruit, how do you factor in the win-loss aspect of that game when you see Ohio State win, or even in the past you've seen Clemson win that same matchup? How do you factor that into your decision, your process?
I don't really think that's a big factor out of my decision process. Everybody's going to win, everybody's going to lose, but to what school I commit to, I plan to win all games and make it to a national championship.
Ohio State is a school you haven't visited, sadly, because of all the restrictions and the dead period. But you talked about having a good relationship and just watching what Coach Day does at Ohio State. Another coach you have a great relationship is Coach Washington at Ohio State. How are your relationships like with those two, and how often are you communicating with them? What are they telling you? How's everything going on with them?
Right, the whole relationship process with them, those guys, ever since I've been offered since last summer, has been great. Making that whole relationship process is a key value for me in my recruitment. We talk on a day-to-day basis, with a phone call or a text of encouragement to go throughout the week, because I know they're busy as well, so am I. So, they're always keeping me keeping in touch and always making sure that to get me as a Buckeye.
It's not necessarily a secret anymore, but Ohio State, despite having 3 other linebacker types committed, they are prioritizing you like no other prospect in this class, and they want you to join all the other linebackers they have. Do you feel that when they're prioritizing you that much? What is it like just knowing that even though they have all those guys, you're with the top guy on the board that they want the most?
It's a blessing. It's a blessing to me and my family. I don't take it for granted. And I come out here every day and put the work in to keep that status of on anybody's board. I appreciate all the coaches and all the recruits that reached out. Those linebackers are a great group of linebackers who have a successful years throughout the come at being at Ohio State. But those guys overall are great people.
We're talking about them. Who is all talking to you when it comes to Ohio State commits? What's their message to you? And how interesting you just have that great relationship with those other guys that are going through the same thing that you're going through at this age.
It's some offensive guys as well, but the main defensive guys are C.J. Hicks and Deshaun McCullough. Those are my guys. We made a great relationship throughout the process. They want me to come be great and come be a Buckeye.
One other commit that I imagine has talked to you some, but even though he's not a very vocal guy, and that's Ohio State tight end commit Benji Gosnow. He's not very vocal at all. When he does something, I always message him saying that he must be really interested because he doesn't ever talk that much.
Right.
What's your relationship like with Benji, and how often does he talk to you trying to get you to go to Ohio State?
He hits me up every other day, every other week. He's a great guy, great tight end here in North Carolina. Him going out to Ohio State is a big step for him, and I'm very proud, but he's a great guy overall.
You mentioned it when we talked before we got on camera, but you want to recruit other guys wherever you're going to go, Ohio State, Clemson, North Carolina, Georgia, whatever you end up, you want to recruit other guys. Does that factor into you wanting to decide so soon, even though you haven't visited some schools?
It does. To make a great class, you're going to have to bring people with you. Not myself, not just myself will make me be great. Other guys I can bring in to make the best and be the best a part of the program.
One guy that I know specifically that you're going after and that you formed a close friendship with is Travis Shaw, the 5-star defensive tackle out of Grimsley High School. How often do you and Travis just talk about playing together and going to the same college and taking visits together? How often do you guys go through all that?
We go throughout it, probably once a week. So that's my guy. We're great friends. We plan to take some trips together before my commitment date. So, us talking throughout that whole day, us talking through social media, through FaceTime or just a phone call, helps a lot.
You just recently, not even recently, but the state of North Carolina has seen a ton of different talent come through it, whether it's going to Ohio State or Clemson or UNC. Just being in North Carolina, do you think, are those the guys you're going to go after? Are you going to recruit nationally? What's your plan? Are there any guys specifically that you want to go after and try and bring with you at the next level?
Right, talent's worldwide and nationwide. I'm trying to go after the best people that will make the program great. I'll talk to whatever coaching staff, to whatever school whatever school I'm going to push those guys and always check in on them to make them whoever I'm going to be.
been going for about 10 minutes here, so we'll finish up with one last question. What's going to be the biggest thing in your opinion that's going to factor into where you go and making your decision here by the end of the month?
Right, relationships go a long way for me and my family. I think that relationship aspect of it will carry away throughout my decision.
Thanks, Jalon.
Yes, sir.